We have seen this before. This is the standard model of an astrological chart, the South Indian version, and I've put in the Lagna starting at Mesham here. So there are 12 houses, and I've put here the owner of the individual houses. So you have at Mesham starting with Mars, then you have Venus, Mercury, Moon, Sun, Mercury again, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and so on. Saturn being the furthest away from the Sun, so it is in direct uh, opposition from the two luminary planets, the Moon and the Sun. So this we know, and the standard model, the South Indian version, works really well for astrological analysis. So, which planets would actually be beneficial for you? So, if we take, for example, in this chart, we've got Mesham being your first house, and second house is Rishabham, owned by Venus, and so on. The fundamental idea is that house number 5 and house number 9, these two houses would be helpful to you. So you've got 5 here. Whoops. House number 5, house number 9. Yes. They are known as the Purva Punyasthanam, or the houses that are actually supposed to help you with the good deeds you have done in previous lives. So, any good deeds that you may have done is brought forward in this birth, in this life that you are experiencing as a human, and depending on the intensity of that good energies that you have done, you will reap the benefits. So, that is the Vedic sciences behind an astrological system. So, what dasa and bhukti that you will experience. So, if you happen to have a Surya bhukti or Surya dasa or Guru dasa, which are necessarily house number 5 and 9, the standard model says that you will experience a positive time. Now, why is house number 5 and 9 tied in with house number 1? Why is that important? How is that beneficial for us? So, again, if I were to draw the lines between them, yes, as such. So we can see that there is a triangle that is formed, and these in astrological system, it is known as a cornum or corner or triangle, basically. In the Sanskrit language, is a triangle. So the other version is a kendram, which is a square, which I will talk in another video. In this one, house number 1, 5, and 9 necessarily forms a triangle. This triangle you would have seen in many symbologies of Hinduism or the Vedic sciences. There are triangles everywhere. You would have seen a double triangle, one facing the top, one facing the bottom, like this. And you would have seen that even in the Jewish or in Judaism is known as the Star of David. And in many cultures, not just Hindus and Judaism, but many other cultures, you see the use of the Star of David. It has got some magical or astrological significance. Hence, the Konam in the Vedic sciences, house number 1, 5, and 9, forms a triangle, brings forth positive energies from the past to help you. So, if you are having a dasa, which is a Surya dasa, and also you have to note that Surya need not be in its own house, need not be in Simham. during your time of birth. It could be anywhere else. So the standard model says house number five will help you. If you are talking about house number five, the dasa, Sima dasa, Surya dasa, that is. If that is happening right now for you, you are Mesha Laknam, not Mesha Rasi, Mesha Laknam individual. House number five's dasa is happening. The standard model says you will go through a good time. The sun or Suryan will try and help you. But that is the standard model. The next part of the story is it depends where the sun is placed. Anyhow, that is why astrological analysis and forecast is not straightforward. There is no direct answer. We will all measure Lugnam individuals going through Surya Dasa experience positive growth, experience happiness during Surya Dasa. If you are Mesha Lagna, no, of course not. What if Suryan is in the same house as Jupiter and Sunny and Rahu is there? So you have Suryan, Jupiter, Sunny, Rahu in the same house during the year that you were born, for example. Suryan loses its luminous energy, although Jupiter is there. Depending on Sunny and Rahu, that intensity, also the phase of the moon, because the only other luminary that will help Suryan and Jupiter is the moon. Anyhow, the point is there are many other attributes you have to look at before arriving at whether or not the fifth house or the ninth house will be helpful for you. So, in the same way, if I were to draw or if I were to make Venus as your Laknam or Rishabham, you would have this kind of a triangle. Again, 1, 5, and 9. So this would be house number 1, house number 5, house number 9. And the similar thing, if you are a Rishabha Rasi and Buddhan Dasa is happening or Sani Dasa is happening, the standard model says that you will go through growth. You will have good events happening in your life, joyful events, and that's the time that you should make use of moving up or trying new stuff, getting on with the things that you always wanted to do, trying new ventures, getting into a business, buying that stock, buying that house, getting married. It'll help you. Now, I will talk about the Kendram, the square, in another video, but again, if you can have Kendram and Konam together, such as if you are, again, let me just quickly, since I'm talking about that subject, let me just make that. If you are Rishabha Rasi, you would have Sunny here as your Bhakya planet because Sunny becomes a Kendram and a Konam owner at the same time. So you have Sunny will help Venus because it is part of the square and a triangle. So how would that happen? This Sunny is the owner of the Kendram. This Sunny is owner of a Konam, triangle and square. They sit necessarily, counting that from Rishabha Rasi, that is house number 1, this is house number 2, this is house number 3, and so on. So right until you make a complete circle of 12 houses. Anyway, that is another subject for another day. So by just drawing triangles from different rasis, fifth house and ninth houses away from that particular Laknam, which is that you are born with, you will have a series of houses or teams, as I would say, teams of factions, two different um, factions of planets. On the one side, you have Jupiter as the team leader. On the other side, you would have Venus as your team leader. How does this two planets become the team leader? Well, that is a whole um, kada or storyline behind it. Is from the Mahabharata. You have the Sukracharya and the Guru Acharya. So Guru necessarily, we know, directly means Guru is Jupiter. That's what the Sanskrit name for Jupiter is anyway. And Venus is Sukran, so you have Sukracharya here. So opposite factions of the war between cousins. You have the Pandavas and the Kauravas and all that huge venture, the huge enterprise of the war, which was told in a storyline where they introduce actually Vedic science, the Vedic astrology, and the various sciences. So you have Sahadevan being part of the storyline, who is the chief astrologer, or we call him the father of astrology. So every astrologer, we bow down in reverence to Sahadevan before we start our analysis, our forecast. Anyway, there are planets after you have formed the triangle with house number 1, 5, and 9. You have obviously for the Jupiter side, you have the Sun, you would have the Moon as part of its friendly planets, and you have Mars. These are the physical planets. Then you have the shadow planet Ketu, which is part of this faction of friends. On the Sukran side of Venus, you have Mercury, which is part of its friend, and you have definitely Saturn is here, and you have Rahu over here as well. So we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 planets. All of them are here, but noting how they are so-called grouped together. On the Jupiter side, which is a Guru Acharya, all these planets, if you are going through that dasa, if you are born in any of these laknas, a lakna which is owned by the moon, which is Karaga Laknam, if, for example, you have Savai happening, Savai dasa, Mars dasa, you will go through a good period. You would have a beneficial growth. If you are born in a lakna owned by Venus, that would necessarily mean that you would need to experience any one of these dasa, any one of these dasas owned by these planets, Mercury, Saturn, or Rahu dasa. This again is a standard model. If I say, for example, taking into consideration, if I say you are Tulam Rasi or Tulam Laknam, owned by Venus, but you're going through Rahu dasa, there are other attributes to look into, which are placement of Rahu, which planet is looking at Rahu, which planet is conjuncting with Rahu, for example. And you have to take note of um, the strength of the moon and the sun, and the strength of Rahu's friends, which are again part of this faction: Venus, Mercury, Saturn. Now, to showcase what I was intending to say about which planet would help you, I'm casting this example of a chart. I just made this chart this morning. So I said, let's say this person is born exactly 30 years ago, 9 June 1993 at 12:30 p.m. at Chennai. So we see the Laknam of the person is Simha Laknam. We see the Rasi as Magaram. And we see that the moon is 6 houses away from the Laknam. Okay, that is the first point. The second point is we have to see where the Lakna Onam, which is Simhan or Suryan, we can see Suryan is way over here at a house owned by Venus, which is Rishabha Rasi. Then we have to look at where the owner of Venus is. 12 houses away from Rishabha, so 12 houses away from his own house. Again, the standard astrological philosophy says that a planet which is 12 houses away loses its potency, loses its energies or positive strength, and health cannot help it. Now, on the right side, I am showcasing the dasa that this person, born in 1993, 9th of June, what dasa and bhuktis they have experienced. So, this person is born in Tiruvonam or Shravana in Sanskrit. So Tiruvonam is owned by moon. So hence the first dasa would be moon. And when did that start? Right from the time of their birth until 1994, about a year later, they experienced a moon dasa, which was helpful. Why? Because for Surya Laknam, again, this Laknam, another luminary planet, which is the moon, would be a helpful planet. So this person was born with good physical strength, although 6 houses away in Magaram, so hence becoming a Magara Rasi. This person during birth was born without any illnesses. Why? Because sixth house represents illness anyway. So why am I saying that this person is not born with physical ailments? Because the Laknam owner is not what we are looking at. The Laknam owner is actually over here in Rishabham, which is a house, a luminary house, but it's an enemy house. Looking back, if you go back to this video of a few minutes before, you would see the two factions that I put. The Guru Acharya or under the Jupiter faction or the gang, you would see the moon and the sun, the two luminaries are there with Savai and Jupiter. The Laknam owner, Suryan, is in Rishabham. Rishabham is owned by Venus, and Venus is actually a positive planet. Venus is a planet that is half the strength of Jupiter. So Sukracharya, in the story of the Mahabharata anyway, Sukracharya is poised to have half the strength of Guru Acharya. Because why? The storyline is just a story. It says that the Pandavas must win. So Guru Acharya is actually there. The leader or the mentor, the teacher for the Kauravas are Sukran, hence half the strength. Anyway, those are just the storyline. So coming back to our analysis, Suryan or the sun has not lost its potency, did not lose its power. So it's a good strength. Now let me just rub this off, including the one on the other end, and let's start our analysis once more. So the first dasa is the moon. Second dasa is Mars, which is also helpful. We can see Mars is 12 houses away from the Laknam. 12 houses means a lot of things and depends on the age of the person. So when we look at the timeline here, Mars Dasa ends when this person is 8 years old. Positive for the person and positive for the mother of this person. So the mother would have experienced 12 houses effect, which is overseas travel, which is buying a property, which is getting a family heirloom from the person's mother or father, most likely the mother itself. So the mother of this child, born at this time, is inheriting property from her own mother, so your grandmother. This child's grandmother is giving some kind of property to the mother. And why is that? How do we see that? Because this is the 12th house. Lucknam is the first house, and hence, if you go around all the houses, you would see 12th house is where Mars is. Mars Dasa is happening here during this timeline, and 12th house effects would kick in. Overseas travel, long distance travel. 12th house is also other people's money, hence property that is passed on from heirloom. And why do I say mother's heirloom? Because Kadagam, this house is Kadagal Rasi. Kadagam is a luminary house owner, which is the moon. Moon is the mother. 12th house owner means inheritance from the mother's side, most likely property, but can be any kind of inheritance. Can be a car, can be a particular set of jewelry that the grandmother used during her own wedding, right? A particular kind of garment that was bought from Persia, or Persian rug, whatever. During this time, again, because of this child's good time, the mother benefited. So we see that happening during the Mars Dasa. And what happens next? We see Rahu Dasa happening from 2001 to 2019. Rahu is one of the more difficult planets to read because we have to see placement of planet, strength, conjunction, the house owner strength, and so on. And also looking at the Navamsa, which I did not showcase in this video because to talk about Navamsa as a whole, a different scientific approach, we will get into it at a different time. Anyhow, where is Rahu? 4 houses away in Vrichigam, which is owned by Mars. Again, Mars, another thing that I have to say. Now, earlier we looked at Mars Dasa, and I said Mars Dasa is positive for the mother. For Rahu Dasa, unfortunately, this will be a slightly good time and then it'll be a bad time. So it goes upwards and downwards like this. And why is that? Because of the nature of Mars. Mars is over here, and Mars is actually Nicham or debilitated. Debilitated or lost his power. Debilitated, meaning that at this point of time, Mars in Karagam is the furthest away from the Sun. In 9th of June 1993, Mars was furthest away from the Sun. Although you will see astrologically, you can notice that they seem to be just a few houses away. But this is where astronomy extends to astrology. So debilitation of Mars means that Mars is the furthest away. It cannot help you. When I say you, it cannot help Rahu in this sense to attain a positive stance. So Rahu behaves negatively. With what? With Mars. What are the attributes and characteristics of Mars? For example, Mars represents blood. Mars represents energy or spots. So this person will become sluggish. Anything that is the characteristics of the planet Mars, it will give you a negative effect. This person may not play sports. This person will have blood related issues. This person would have troubles in red buildings. Red buildings, for example, buildings like the police station is very famous for tying in with the planet Mars. So it's all negative. So looking back again at the table I said earlier, the friends and the enemies table. So you had for Simam, the moon is helpful, Mars is helpful, and for Rahu, I said it depends. In this instance, is not helpful. Next, we have Guru. And when we talk about Guru, we are also looking at what is the current dasa that the person is going through, which is actually Guru right now. So where do we see the current date is actually right about here. So you have Guru, the Bhukti is Saturn, and right about here now. So we are stepping across from 14th of May 2023 to 30th September 2023. So you have the dasa we have seeing as Jupiter, and we have the Bhukti, which is Saturn, and Rahu is the Andaram or the sub dasa. This is Rahu. So how would we read something like this? Again, we have to see placement of these three planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and Rahu, which are actually here. Saturn is in his own house. Rahu is not happy, staying in a house of a debilitated planet, which is Mars. Jupiter is in an opposite enemy's camp, a house owned by Mercury, which is Kanya Rasi. And Saturn is in his own house in Kumbham, and Saturn, I would say, if he's sitting in his own house, especially with a Mula Trikona house like Kumbham, Saturn becomes powerful in a very malefic way, depending on who is the Lagna owner, whether again, friend or enemy of that. You have here Simha Lagnam. Naturally, the Sun and Saturn become enemies. So this is actually no go. This is not good for this individual. But Jupiter itself has a positive trait, which is Jupiter is looking at his own house, Meenam here, right? He looks at the Rasi with his fifth house Parve or fifth house Drishti, and it looks at Rishabham, right? So it's looking at its own house, which is positive, is looking at the moon. Although we are thinking about Magara Rasi. Magaram is owned by Saturn, so it's looking at the enemy's house, but it's looking at a planet that is sitting there as well. So it has lost 70% of its potency for the moon. Then it's also looking at Rishabha Rasi, which is again enemy camp, but you have the sun there, which is Lagna owner. So you have Jupiter during its dasa looking at the moon, which is its friend, and it's also looking at the sun, which is its friend, and the Lagna owner. Throughout this individual's life, whatever the challenge, no matter how much a pounding life gives, this person will be able to withstand it and come up on top, come up successfully. The problem will not pull this person down. This person will always overcome challenges. Why? Because Guru Parve for the Lagna owner, for Suryan. So during this time is kind of a negative because Rahu in the house of a debilitated planet, I said. But generally, overall, Jupiter is in a positive stance. After that, you would have Sunny Dasa happening, partially good, partially bad, because Guru is looking at one of its houses, Moon, where the moon is placed, which is the Rasi house. Also, Magaram, another house owned by Saturn. So Saturn will give positive for the first 9 years, 9.5 years, and then the next 9.5 years would be a bit negative because the dasa of Saturn is 19 years long and it's a mixed thing. So, friendly planet, when a planet would help you, the main attributes again depends on the factions, the two factions, the Guru Acharya or Jupiter and Sukracharya, the Venus planets. So you have that factions, that gang of planets, which dasa is happening, whether a dasa of a friend or a foe. That's the first thing. Second thing, we have to think about the placement of those planets, whether they are Kendram for his own, from their own house, whether they are Konam from their own house, whether they are 6, 8, 12 houses away, which are the Durstana houses. And we also have to account for the Ashtamasani, Janmasani, Sade Sati period. So you have the transitory effects of Saturn as well. Saturn is the only planet that during its transit to house number 8 or house number 12, 1, and 2, that's the only planet that can actually suspend a good or bad dasa, suspend any dasa, and give you its Ashtamasani or Sade Sati effect. You have to account for that. So, reading astrological charts again is a complex matter. There's no simple answer. In this instance, again, I would reiterate: would all Simha Lagnam owner experience a good time during Jupiter Dasa? No, not necessarily. For example, if I say if the person, the Saturn for this person was over here, this was evident for those who are born in 1981. You will see Saturn and Jupiter in the same house in Kanya Rasi. In this Rasi, you will see 1981 born. If you are, again, this Laknam, Surya Laknam, and Guru Dasa is happening, but Guru is a positive planet, friends of the Sun, but is having a negative energy from Saturn, a malefic energy, shadow energy, dark energy. So a bright planet is being shadowed by a very powerful shadow planet, in fact, that is Saturn, the most feared planet. So how would Jupiter behave in such a case? So that we have to analyze it based on Navamsa, right? And that Navamsa chart analysis is a huge thing, whether the person would be able to withstand it or not. Ultimately, it all depends on where the house, I mean, where the Lakna owner is placed and how much energy that Lakna owner can actually help to balance the situation. Again, that is another analysis, another video for another time. I think I'll stop here now. I hope you have found this video helpful, beneficial, to an extent that I think I introduced the Dasa period showcase in the video first time here. Please leave a comment, any questions you may have, write down in the comment section, start a discussion, share your own experiences, and I will talk to you all again soon. I wish you all the very best. Thank you, everyone. God bless.